Welcome to a new planetary and seismic update. You see the SSGI graph from the previous time frame, magnitude 5.5 and larger. And what we see is minimal clustering at the time of the full moon on the 21st, 22nd, two magnitude 5.5 earthquakes, not all that much. But then we had two strong earthquakes at the time of the two planetary conjunctions with Venus and Mercury on the 23rd, 22nd, 23rd and 24th, peaking 6.3 at Vanuatu. I estimated that the largest seismic activity would actually occur in the first half of this time frame, but that was not the case. And this is because I clearly underestimated the planetary geometry involving Mercury and Venus on the 23rd and 24th. And this is because of the specific arrangement of those planetary conjunctions, whereby Venus and Mercury were not in the middle, but on one end of the conjunctions. My mistake, because on the 27th, we had a lunar conjunction with Saturn and immediately followed by a significant clustering of stronger earthquakes, peaking 7.2 at PERU. And that's almost a mid-7 magnitude earthquake. So what is it with these major earthquakes following lunar conjunctions or significant or critical lunar geometry? It is always preceded by critical planetary geometry, usually involving Venus and Mercury. And we actually have statistics on this. If we look at the statistics of mid-7 magnitude earthquakes, 39 in total, in 87% of the cases, those earthquakes were preceded by a conjunction with Venus and an outer planet, and usually also involving Mercury and an outer planet. Most of these this specific planetary geometry of Venus and Mercury, most of them occur one day before the earthquake and also 2 days before the earthquake. Not so much 3 days, but again 4 days. So 1 day, 2 days and 4 days. These are the statistics. And what we had last week perfectly matches these statistics, because this is 4 days after the significant planetary geometry occurred with Venus and Mercury. And you may recall that I actually highlighted those two planetary conjunctions because they were in a near convergence, and that makes it more critical. But I actually expected a seismic increase, usually 1 day, that's the majority, 1 day after the planetary geometry occurred. So that would have been around the 25th. But as you can see, we have a lunar peak, lunar conjunction with Saturn, and then we have the major earthquake. Because of this, I actually changed the algorithm of the lunar geometry on the SSGI graph, and if you compare the two SSGI graphs, you can clearly see that the lunar conjunction with Saturn is now more highlighted, more intense green, and also a bit larger on the SSGI index. So hopefully in the future we will not overlook this specific geometry, because there is a significant synchronicity between critical planetary geometry and critical lunar geometry. You see the significant clustering, actually one aftershock, a 6.1 in Peru, but it was significant seismic activity following the lunar conjunction with Saturn. And you can also see that there's another lunar conjunction, that's with Neptune. Both Saturn and Neptune were involved in the planetary geometry with Mercury and Venus on the 23rd, 24th. So there is the possibility of another stronger shake today, I suspect, because the lunar conjunction with Neptune occurred early on the 28th, and if we take 2 days, we end up on the 30th. Significant planetary geometry and significant seismic response following the lunar geometry. Okay, so let's have a look at the next time frame. This is from today up until the 9th of July. We see critical planetary geometry in a convergence on the 2nd and 3rd of July. And this is primarily right-angle geometry with Venus, Mercury and Neptune. And as I explained so often, they usually come in pairs. This time we have Venus, it is the most critical one, Venus in the right angle with Mercury and Neptune on the 2nd, early on the 2nd, and 24 hours later followed by Mercury at the right angle with Venus and Neptune. What makes it more critical is the fact that we have Mercury, Sun and Neptune in a conjunction practically at the same time that Venus is in the right angle with Mercury and Neptune. That is planetary geometry that should not be underestimated. At the same time, we can now clearly see with the new SSGI algorithm, we have 3 lunar peaks. The first is with the moon and Mars on the first, later on the first, just preceding the critical planetary geometry. And then immediately followed by Earth, Moon and Uranus. And then, and that's probably the most critical one, Earth, Moon, Jupiter, early on the third, at the same time that Mercury is in a right angle with Venus and Neptune. So we have a convergence of critical planetary geometry and lunar geometry at the same time on the 2nd and 3rd, primarily of July. And I suspect that as an obvious seismic increase, a larger seismic event may occur on the 3rd, 4th or 5th of July as a result of this planetary and lunar geometry. There's no additional lunar geometry in between, so it doesn't look like we have to take 4 days, except for the new moon on the 5th, later on the 5th, early 6th. So could there be a seismic response on the 6th of July? Maybe, if it arrives late, following the new moon, but I think that the lunar conjunction with Jupiter is more critical here, more significant. So 3, 4 or 5 July, that I believe is the time frame that we could see an obvious seismic response, that it is a larger seismic event. So clustering of stronger earthquakes, higher 5 magnitude, with and following the critical planetary lunar geometry, but a larger seismic event, most likely 3, 4 or 5 July. And later on in the time frame, again we see this the new moon on 5, 6 July, and then Mercury, Sun and Mars in conjunction. They can trigger a stronger shake, probably not too strong. And then early on the 9th, we have a higher lunar peak. That's right angle geometry, probably not critical, and also right angle geometry involving Mercury and Venus, which I will discuss in the next update because it is almost to the next time frame. In the solar system, we see this planetary geometry, 3 green lines. That's the lunar geometry of Mars, Uranus and Jupiter in that sequence. We see Mercury with the Sun and Neptune. Don't underestimate that planetary conjunction. Mercury, Sun, Neptune is a critical conjunction, and we have it in a critical convergence with Venus, Mercury, Neptune in a right angle. That's really critical. That convergence almost at the same time should not be underestimated. And we see the purple lines, that is Venus in a right angle again with Mercury and Neptune, and also Mercury in a right angle with Venus and Neptune. Again, this is really critical because of Mercury, Sun, Neptune at the same time. And the lunar conjunctions, not to forget. Especially Earth, Moon, Uranus, and Earth, Moon, Jupiter. So if there's going to be large seismic activity, it could very well be on 3rd, 4th or 5th of July, just following the planetary and lunar geometry. Back to the major earthquake in Peru, 7.2 is a major earthquake, and if you look at recent years, most of the larger earthquakes, magnitude 7 earthquakes, occurred Peru-Ecuador border region, but not to the south in Chile. Now Chile had some major earthquakes, great earthquakes, earlier, it's about a decade ago. That was in 2010, 8.8, in 2014, magnitude 8, and also 2015, 8.3. Since then, there has also been a 7.6 very much to the south of Chile, and that's it. I think 2017, if I'm not mistaken, or the end of 2016. In any case, in recent years, no major seismic activity in Chile. And the 7.2 that we had now recently in Peru, it is along a dangerous subduction zone, and it affects the stress distribution along that subduction zone. And if you look at recent history, megathrust earthquakes, magnitude 9, last time occurred in Chile, 1960. And it is also possible for Peru or Ecuador to produce these great earthquakes. Ecuador, 1906, 8.8. Peru, it's been longer. In 1868, magnitude 9, in this bend, it was Peru at the time, I think, and it's now Chile, Arica. And that was a magnitude 9, 1868. It's been a while. But this 7.2 is another significant indicator. Again, most of these major earthquakes in recent years occurred in Peru and also Peru-Ecuador border region. So stress is building to the north and to the south of this earthquake. So next could be Chile, but Peru I think, is very well a candidate of a megathrust earthquake in the near future. But it's difficult to say when exactly that is going to be. It can be 10 years, it can be another 100 years. With this megathrust seismic activity, it's very difficult to make any estimates. It's the same with Cascadia subduction zone. The last time a magnitude 9 occurred was in 1700. They occur, 8.5 plus occurs every 240 years on average. But there have been gaps of 500 years, that's more than double. So there's no way to know when the next one will occur. But this seismic activity is something to keep an eye on. I think especially Peru here, because it has been a long time since Peru had a magnitude 9 earthquake, and it is a possibility. So what about atmospheric fluctuations? Interestingly, or strangely enough, since the 19th we have not recorded significant fluctuations. Also, this major earthquake in Peru was not marked in advance by atmospheric anomalies. Why that is, I do not know. We record and we can see what we record, but if there are no fluctuations, significant fluctuations, then there are no indications as to where the next largest seismic activity occurs. We keep monitoring, of course, and if there is significant fluctuations going on in the atmosphere, we will let you know, of course. We update it on the website and also in social media. So again, today, because of the conjunction with the moon and Neptune on the 28th, there is the possibility of another stronger shake. It may not be over yet, but we really should keep an eye on the planetary lunar geometry on the 2nd and 3rd of July. There is the potential for another major seismic event following that geometry. This is the update for now. Stay safe. Until next time.